When Lucifer attempted to lead a revolt against God millions of years ago, he was punished by being expelled from heaven. Archangel Michael bound him to a huge rock and used his own sword as the seal after he immediately plummeted into hell. Before Michael departs, Lucifer makes a promise to return one day as God's equal. While they wait for him to return, Lucifer's followers construct a villa around the opening through which he fell while he gathers demons to aid him in his plans for retaliation. Laura, an art historian, is now a student in Italy in the year 2022. Her professor disapproves of her plan since it belittles Italy's history, and she wants to write a thesis on how the great Italian artists did not genuinely believe in the angels and devils they depicted in their artwork. Laura is forced to flee from the creep when he offers to discuss the thesis in confidence in his place. A little while later, Laura runs into Father Marconi, who issues her with a unique pass that would allow her entry to all of his cathedral's exhibits, including the most recent showing of the Shroud of Turin. The blood from Jesus' crucifixion is present in this cloth. After showing Laura the shroud and giving her a thorough tour of the facility, Marconi introduces her to their newest addition, a stunning monument depicting Michael vanquishing Lucifer. After some time spent discussing the idea of evil, Marconi departs from Laura so she may continue working on the statue drawing for her thesis. Laura hears someone calling her name while she's drawing, but no one is present, so she puts it down to her imagination. The show is going to close a few hours later. The final set of guests is being joined by a raven that is flying around the structure and lands near the door while changing into Liz. She chooses to go via an off-limits door instead of following the guide, which is seen on camera by a guard. Liz walks along the corridor with the statues and stands back to see Laura sketch. She only stops when she suddenly discovers the statue's head of Lucifer moving. Once more feeling anxious, Laura looks around and is shocked to see a raven perched outside the window. Liz takes Michael's sword off the statue while Laura is preoccupied with the bird, then she goes. A guard spots Laura at that very time, believing her to be the hooded individual who got split from the group, but Laura shows the guard that she has access to this location. After reminding Laura that they're closing, the guard departs, believing it to be a simple mistake. When gathering her belongings, Laura sees Michael's hand, but she is unable to distinguish it from her own. She then moves for the front door, but finds that it is already locked, so she looks for another escape. She is surprised to see Liz murder the guard with the sword and take his head as she returns to the corridor. Laura, who is terrified, flees and hides in a confessional booth, where she is able to observe Liz disabling the alarms with the guard's eyes and shattering the glass and closing the shroud with the sword in order to steal the artifact. Liz stabs Marconi when he tries to stop her after hearing the noise. As Liz discovers Laura in the booth, she tells her men to grab her. Later, Liz's guys show there to help defend the shroud. Marconi prays with his dying breath and begs Michael to use his body to stop Lucifer once the others has left the room. As Liz's party exits in their car, Michael quickly descended from heaven and assumed the priest's body to pursue them. While he can move rather quickly because to his angelic abilities, Michael must halt in order to prevent the body from being destroyed. A bunch of wealthy individuals are simultaneously admiring the prodigy child's impressive violin playing. During the concert, Dr. Loran informs that this child is a clone of Antonio Vivaldi, adding his name to a lengthy list of well-known individuals whose DNA has been used to create clones by his business. The infants are then sold at auction to wealthy families. The current offering is a Michelangelo replica. Liz appears at the auction to inform Laurent that they have the shroud. The gang arrives to Lucifer Villa shortly after. Although Laura is imprisoned in a glass cage alongside Brenda and two other women, Laurent is thrilled to see the shroud since it will allow him to clone Jesus at last. One of them won't stop sobbing and shouting, but Laura calms her down with some soothing words. Laura agrees that they should collaborate. But before they can make any plans, a group of nurses burst into the cell to take Laura's vital signs. Michael returns to the church in the interim and discovers other priests watching the security footage. Marconi's presence astounded the guys, but Michael doesn't offer an explanation and instead inquires about the protectors of the shroud. The priest explained that Cardinal Vincini had been in charge of the security, but that he lost control and began speculating about hidden societies and demonic monsters, which everyone put down to dementia. Michael demands to know where Vincini is after finding that he is now a hermit living by himself in an institution because he finds it incomprehensible that priests reject what the Bible plainly states. After giving the priest his pass and asking about Laura, Michael takes the security film and demands a pledge from them not to tell anybody that they saw him. Following that, Michael steals Marconi's jacket and drives off while taking some medication he discovers in the glove compartment to treat the agony his powers have caused. He doesn't realize that a raven is following him the entire time. Michael arrives at the institution and encounters Vincini, who is armed and terrified, while the villa scientists are hard at work extracting Jesus' DNA from the shroud. Michael claims to be an angel, but as soon as Vincini touches him, he realizes that he is more than just a priest and starts to believe him. The scriptures mention Lucifer returning someday, and for that he needs two ancient beasts who are of both worlds. One is the woman, obviously referring to Liz, and the other is the beast of the ground. Vincini is aware of Liz and shows Michael the villa they built around the hole to hell while explaining this asylum was built as a lookout. Children were presented to Lucifer by his disciples for years, but their frail human bodies couldn't hold him. They intended to clone Jesus since no one else had a body powerful enough for Lucifer to take control, which is why they took the shroud. Michael vows to stop them after hearing what he does, and Vincini takes him to the base of the villa mountain. When Michael enters the vicinity, Lucifer's sword responds, allowing him to eventually break the seal by pulling on the chain. While discussing their personal lives at the villa and trying to discover a method to free themselves, the women learn that Laura has lost both her husband and her kid. Liz instructs Laurent to expedite the procedure when he does some tests and finds Laura and him to be 100% compatible. The nurses try to remove the girls when they return to the cell, but the ladies try to defend themselves by using their chains. Sadly, additional nurses show up and swiftly overwhelm them, allowing Brenda and Laura to be taken to the operating room. There, the medical professionals fertilize the girls' eggs with Jesus' DNA, and Liz appears to identify herself as an angel of the Lord. She claims to Laura that the sketches she made of Lucifer back in the cathedral convinced her that she was the chosen one. Michael is left by Vincini at the entrance to a hidden cave that will lead him to the villa in the meantime. Before they go, Vincini sees the raven that has been following them and shoots it. He then hands Michael his gun, and Michael starts moving into the cave right away. Laura and Brenda are then disguised as newlyweds and taken to a meeting of Lucifer worshippers where they are bound to a pillar. The girls are then taken by the beast of the ground, who places them in a huge bird cage before lowering it into the well that guards the entrance to hell. The ladies are restrained by a group of demons who suddenly materialize surrounding the cage while Lucifer changes his body into nothing more than its essence in order to enter Brenda through her lips. Brenda fights the devil for a little period of time, but she eventually loses the battle and passes away. After that, Lucifer departs from her body and enters Laura's, who successfully resists being possessed. Liz then introduces Laura as the chosen one, and leads her to a brand new glass cell with a bed and a vital sign monitor when she emerges from the building in a stupor. Liz responds that she is a greater Jesus, when Laura asks what is inside of her. To return to Michael, he locates a door in the cave tunnel at last and opens it with a gun to enter the villa. Michael is shot in the shoulder after failing to use his weapon when the guards spot him right away. He answers by striking the security personnel a few times, then takes a uniform and a pass to escape detection. After gaining entry to the lab, Michael takes the shroud out and checks the surveillance footage to find Laura. Laurent walks into the lab at that point, but Michael shoves him up against the table and demands information. The sole reaction from Laurent is that he strives for a fresh start. In order to put fire between himself and the approaching guards, Michael intends to blow up the entire lab by opening the gas canisters and lighting a flare. Laura begs the nurse to let her go as the building's fire alarm starts to sound, but the man won't allow her escape the cell. Laura hugs Michael after Michael knocks down the nurse and appears to believe that Marconi is still alive. Michael is diverted though, as Lucifer starts to telepathically chide him about his freedom. Unable to comprehend how his seal was compromised, Michael becomes enraged, leading Laura to believe that he is a member of the enemy. Laura flees in fear, but Michael pursues her and takes her into a room before the guards can catch up with her. In response, Laura snatches his pistol and points it at him, but Michael persuades her that he is on her side while he treats the wound. Michael then chooses to bring Laura away with him in order to protect her after Laura describes what they did to her. As Liz watches them depart, she sends her goons after them, but when one of the guards almost shoots Laura, Liz murders him out of concern for Laura's safety. When Michael and Laura attempt to flee down the underground tunnel, Laura starts to feel sick and the baby is developing too quickly. Their delay allows the beast to come up to them and start fighting. Michael first provides strong battle, but soon his human body starts to weaken once more, and the beast wins. As Liz and her thugs come, Laura is recaptured and threatens to harm the child if they harm the priest. Liz explains to her that because the priest is already dead, all that is left to do is kill the angel. Michael is shackled in the room with the well, while Laura is carried back to the cell and fastened to the bed. He breaks the bindings with the use of his magic, but doing so renders him incredibly frail. In order to leap into the well before the beast can get him, he drags his body through the earth till he reaches there. Michael is assaulted by a demon as soon as he gets in hell, but he easily pushes the being away. He investigates the rock and is surprised to see that his sword is missing. Other demons appear, and they can find Michael using Lucifer's sword in a manner similar to how he had done to Lucifer in the past. As this is happening, Laura's unnaturally fast-growing unborn child. Liz assures Laura that this child will stand in for the one she lost, but she won't refer to them as the same. Laura is having an ultrasound when she sees the baby on the screen and is startled to see him suddenly come out and growl at her. She immediately wakes up and realizes that it was all a dream. Liz, who is seated next to her and curious about if Lucifer speaks to her, approaches her. Laura doesn't respond, so Liz starts reciting the tale of how Lucifer battled the oppressive ruler they refer to as God. When Laura replies she doesn't care, Liz smacks her. As Laura delivers birth, Liz says she'll set her free, but for now, she expects respect. A few seconds later, other children discover Michael on the rock. They, it transpires, are the failed sacrifices who have been collaborating to endure in hell. The children are unsure about whether they can trust angels because Lucifer had once been one despite Michael's assurances that he will escort them home if they manage to locate his weapon. Michael can only watch and disgust as the demons interrupt the conversation and the children flee, but some of them are seized. Back in the jail, Lucifer's essence briefly leaves Laura's uterus and enters her head via her ear to make her an irresistible offer. If Laura takes him into her life, Lucifer will assist in killing the person who killed Laura's family as well as Liz, whom she despises. Laura reclines on the bed, accepting the terms of the bargain as she dreams of holding the kid and developing a relationship with him. Liz observes this and starts to fear that Laura is getting too powerful. Later, Laura utilizes her newfound abilities to extinguish the light and murder the nurse when she does some tests while a nurse. She exits the room after that and runs into another nurse, whom she immediately starts kicking and hitting until he passes away. Unexpectedly, Laura breaks free from Lucifer's eerie grip. Terrified by what she's done, she decides she must murder the child before things worsen. As a result, Lucifer addresses her as Mother and begs her not to do it. Guards start after Laura as she rushes into a janitorial closet in spite of Lucifer's speech. Laura locks the door before grabbing a bottle of chlorine and attempting to drink it despite Lucifer's influence. Liz slams the door and curses at Laura for what she'd done to the baby as Laura vomits and writhes in agony. Laura quickly uses her abilities to seal the door and shove Liz to the ground so that she spits on her face as she is ready to go to see a doctor. As it turns out, Lucifer is now in charge of her body and is punishing Liz for her transgressions. Liz begs Lucifer to give her fresh instructions. After the delivery, nobody can know what occurred here, thus everyone must die. She wishes she could have been the one to bear the baby, but he rejects her requests. He is also concerned that Laura must be murdered after the delivery because they are bonding so well. When Laurent finally shows up, Lucifer strikes him for pleading for help to avoid the chlorine. Laura's body is placed inside a healing pod a short while later. The kids watch from the shadows as Lucifer's spirit briefly departs her body and assumes the form of a demon in hell to converse with Michael and make fun of his failure, which they interpret as evidence that Michael is a nice person. Michael eventually comprehends why God is allowing this to happen when Lucifer departs, and the kids come to his aid. They search for Michael's own sword since they lack the strength to free the demon's sword from its bonds. Before they can give it to Michael, a group of demons show up and promise the youngsters freedom as well. They locate it hidden behind some debris. The children pause for a brief time, but then they are reminded of what they had heard, and they deliver the blade to Michael, who briefly becomes his former form and dispatches the demons. Michael comes to Earth in Marconi's body and recovers the shroud before returning to the main structure after assuring the children that he would return for them shortly. Before going to check on Laura, he knocks down a guard and obtains a weapon, but when he returns, Lucifer's voice answers him. A nurse witnesses Michael pushing the pod into another room out of a desperate attempt to assist. After closing the door, Michael unlocks the pod and attempts to convince Laura that the child is not what she believes, but Lucifer snarls a powerful roar and pushes Michael away. Then, after directing Laura's corpse to stand over Michael and announcing that her water had broken, Lucifer let the liquid fall on the angel, causing his body to catch fire. While asking to be worshipped, Lucifer captures Michael as he attempts to flee and keeps him on Laura's lap. Michael resists Lucifer's attempts to stab him in the neck with Laura's fingers and relates the conclusion he came to. God is permitting this because if Lucifer enters Jesus' holy body, Jesus will keep him under his control and sealed for all eternity. As Lucifer hears this, he becomes enraged and starts to act out, which causes Michael to lose consciousness. Lucifer urges Liz to murder the baby when she arrives with the guards, but Liz recognizes it as Laura speaking once again and orders the guards to carry the infant to the altar. Laura gives birth to the child above the well that leads to hell, and Liz takes him away right away. The beast leaves Laura by herself on the well and opens the cover to cause her to fall before he joins the others outside. The beast then goes on to slaughter every follower, doctor, and guard after Liz introduces them to their new Messiah and explains that he will be baptized with blood rather than water. Laurent is astonished but also relieved to be spared, but the beast also kills him after he gets to kiss the baby's head. Michael awakens in the meantime and uses his weapon to smash the window in order to leave the room. Before they go after their adversary together, he discovers Laura dangling on the brink as he enters the well chamber and lifts her up. Before Liz can reach for the infant, Laura leaps on her and punches her. Liz was going to depart with the baby in the car. Michael responds that the baby isn't Lucifer when Liz requests that he not be hurt. Laura was not chosen by the devil. Rather, God did, and it was through her that Lucifer's eternal tormentor was born. Michael continues to battle since the gates to hell are now open, which means the demons will try to flee, while Laura gets in the car and drives off to find Vincini. As the beast discovers Michael closing the well in a hurry, he pushes him aside and begins opening the well once more. Before the beast can act, Michael finds the explosives Liz placed to destroy the evidence and sets them off. As a result, the facility is completely destroyed and the whole is covered by the rubble. Later, when Michael makes his promised trip back to hell to release all the children, Vincini brings Laura and the infant with him to the church and returns the shroud. Years go by, and Laura continues to reside at the asylum with Vincini to protect the kid, who has developed normally and healthily. As Lucifer tries to go, the child just absorbs him back into his body to keep him locked, as Liz discovers when she slips into the forest to monitor the family.